Jenny, hello Holly, Stephanie, thanks for joining us. We're just giving a couple of people a couple of minutes to get in the room and lamenting that it's not Teams and it's Zoom and how much effort that takes sometimes to get onto the system.
Yeah, it's not our preferred method, is it?
No, it really isn't. Early on in lockdown, it was kind of like, oh, it might be Zooms, it might be Teams, but now I think we've all definitely gone into the Teams camp.
Yeah.
To work out how to do chat and how to put my hands up again. Right, I think we've got everyone in the room now. I'm going to be with you just literally for a minute or two. My name's Sue Williams. I'm here representing PPMA today as one of the voluntary board members. I'm really, really grateful to TribePad and Northumberland to join us today. It's only half an hour, but it's a really nice way, I think, to spend a Friday afternoon. I am going to allow people to introduce themselves. All I would say is that the sessions are recorded, but they're edited as well. So we're asking people to put their questions in the chat during the presentation, and then we'll come back to that chat and open the floor at the end of the presentation, just so we can edit that out. And if you don't want your content to be in there, we don't have to have it. We are asking people to raise hands and to use the chat. That's a little bit different in Zoom, but you can see at the bottom, you've got the reactions button that's a little heart, and the chat button, which is the little speech bubble. So if you're trying to get into that zone, they're the two places that we're going to do that. We are, at the end of the session, we'll just encourage you to record it, because the numbers look pretty high on this one, but it is available for you to share with colleagues. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Matt from TribePad. Thank you again, Matt, for all of your support for PPMA. We really do appreciate it.
That's great. Thanks for that, Sue, and great to see so many people. I'm Matt Ingram-Smith from TribePad, and really my role is super easy today because I get to be the one that introduces the real stars of the show. So the Northumberland County Council have been TribePad customers now for getting on a couple of years, and we've had front row tickets really to see their transformation efforts. And today could be any number of different topics that they're going to share upon, but we're really looking forward to hearing more about talent attraction. So Annalie, over to you.
Thanks very much, Matt. Right, we'll share our screen. Welcome, everybody. Can somebody just confirm they can actually see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to spend the next little chunk of time going through how Northumberland County Council has transitioned from a very transactional recruitment to talent acquisition over the last couple of years. I really hope you'll find it interesting. I might give you some tips. Please don't hesitate to ask questions, as Sue said, via the chat, and we will have time at the end too. I do have my colleagues with me, Marie Curry, who's the Talent Acquisition Manager, and Hafisa Khanum, who's the Talent Acquisition Data and Performance Lead, are also here. So we should be able to cover any queries between us. So let's start. So we're going to cover where we were. So a little bit about the challenges we had and the road we've been trying to get down to make some improvements. And then where we are now about sourcing a very effective new ATS, engaging with candidates much more than we were before, and working very closely with hiring managers. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about what's next, consolidation of the learning so far. We're constantly reviewing and developing and using workforce planning much more as a tool. So firstly, just a little bit about Northumberland, a bit of background to set the scene. We're nearly 2,000 square miles, so a really big county, but with a population of around 320,000. It's the least populated county in England, which brings its own challenges when we're filling the post because it is so rural. Much of our patch is designated as area of natural outstanding beauty, so conservation is behind a lot of what the council does. And we do have some of the finest coastlines in the country, if we do boast, with many historical castles and monuments and a really proud population. And that wonderful sight of the Northern Lights there at Kielder. So as far as the council is concerned, as you can see from this chart, the location is a really key reason for people joining NCC and leads the way. We employ over 5,000 members of staff, which doesn't include schools. But we do have a lot of competition from the private sector. There's a lot of major companies based up here like Nissan and Sage and Procter & Gamble and Deloitte, as well as 2 large NHS trusts. And also, if you remember from the map, there's other local authorities in really close proximity to us in the south of the county, like Durham and Sunderland. Newcastle is separate, North and South Tyneside. So where we were, for a long time, up to about a couple of years ago, we were very transactional, just using North East Jobs for advertising, churning out adverts without much thought necessarily, hoping for the best that they would work. Again, conducting pre-employment checks without a lot of thought about the candidate experience. Hiring managers tended to dictate conversations, but they didn't have the expert knowledge. We were using an overly complicated ATS, which was difficult for managers, team, and candidates alike, and really not fit for purpose. So we made the difficult decision to stop using an ATS completely in October 22 and manage everything manually. The team handled this really, really well, but candidates were still not getting the best experience. Our application numbers were low and we often had to re-advertise. But the world had really changed post-pandemic, and so had the recruitment market, as we all know. So we started to take steps to improve all this. We engaged an external consultant who worked with us to develop team skills around candidate sourcing and using alternative jobs boards such as Indeed. And we started down that route to talent acquisition from recruitment. And it was a real mindset change for the team. He helped us break down the current process and identify the desired process. And our service review team supported us with this. And we created visual maps of the as-is process and the to-be process, which formed the basis of absolutely every step we took. We looked into what were the pain areas for managers in the team. And at the same time, we also developed our EVP with input from workshops with service areas. We did research, we did competitor benchmarking, all with the aim to define and communicate what makes NCC a great place to work. One of the slogans that came out of that was be inspired and supported, be a life changer, and be Northumberland. So it really began to put us out there much more than previously. So having a new ATS was clearly the biggest part of the changes. The main focus for the system was that it needed to be candidate friendly. It needed to be straightforward for the team and hiring managers to use. We could build our own talent pool and it would encourage an uptake in applications. We sourced it in October 22. The development and the build took 6 months. We launched it in April 23. We'd done plenty of rigorous testing. We did dedicated communications to the business. We did emails to hiring managers directly, and we created lots of training videos and guides because this was a real step change for the business as well. It was great to be able to create a totally bespoke system in the main, especially with what we'd had previously. We were able to develop tailored application forms. We did specific offers and contracts. We tailored pre-employment packages. We created advert templates. And we also had our own bespoke approval process for vacancies. And for the first time, we were able to incorporate general recruitment and temporary staffing recruitment onto the same system. So that brings us to where we are now. Clearly, there were a few gremlins when we first launched the ATS, but overall, it's running really smoothly. It is so much better. Everything is in one place, and it's much more visible and transparent to hiring managers as well. Obviously, we continue to do constant small adjustments, but it is really helpful to be able to create bespoke documents as and when we need them. Applications is something that we've really developed here. We've trained the team to use platforms like Indeed and LinkedIn much more effectively, and we're also able to source candidates better for hard-to-fill roles. The team have now got KPIs and are targeted on candidate contact to improve engagement. We've had a restructure in the team very recently, just a few months ago. So we have dedicated talent acquisition advisors supported by assistant TAAs. There's a much greater emphasis on acquisition, from sourcing candidates and the candidate experience, from the social media and campaigns, and also being able to plan ahead better regarding our staffing needs. As you can imagine, social media's played a huge part in us moving forward and has really helped us grow brand awareness. The team have taken over responsibility from communications for posting jobs and information on LinkedIn and Facebook under the NCC banner. And we don't just promote jobs anymore. We also promote NCC as an employer of choice, or Northumberland as a place to live. It's that land of great opportunity slogan that is everywhere for us. We quite often use Canva and ChatGPT to create really engaging wording and visuals for our posts. We do monthly analysis of posts to gauge what is having the best impact. The team are great at putting all sorts of novel things out on the posts. On LinkedIn, we've really built our followers from absolutely nothing to over 1,400 currently. It may not seem a huge number, but it's huge to us. We've tripled our impressions between now and when we started a year ago, and we've doubled the reaction. That's growing all the time. It's probably worth just pointing out that our jobs page sits completely separately from the main NCC page. Obviously, NCC page is bigger, but we're doing a really good job of moving everything forward with LinkedIn. On Facebook, our views have stayed relatively steady, but Facebook has been better for roles not appropriate for LinkedIn. So we can choose which is the best option according to the post. We've also hugely developed our use of campaigns. Obviously, they are perfect for sharing lots of information. We used them for a recent recruitment campaign for the new children's home to absolute fantastic success. And we won the PPMA Best Creative Concept Recruitment Campaign Award as a result. So it definitely worked. We've successfully used campaigns, and they're ongoing, for staff bank within the ATS to target certain roles like refuse collectors, residential support workers, cleaners. It helps us build those pools of staff in those areas, but also, importantly, reduce the reliance on agency and agency spend. And it's been fabulous to use the ATS to expand our talent pool and tag candidates for future roles. We also use a new starter survey for candidate feedback. This is run by our organisational development team, but the feedback has been really positive. The candidates mainly like the application process and find it easy to follow. We've really been encouraged by those responses. We identified areas where we need to engage with candidates more actively, such as a period between application and the next stage not being too long. We've identified that we need to be more proactive in communication, so the candidate doesn't feel like they're constantly having to ask for updates. And that's work in progress as well, keeping those candidates warm. Candidates like the setup that we have for pre-employment checks. They feel it's very clear what they need to complete, and they feel quite reassured that everything is in hand. We've also asked for hiring manager feedback via a survey, which we sent out 6 months after launch. We conducted focus groups to involve hiring managers in further developing the ATS, very much, you said we did type thing, but making them feel a little bit involved. We've done dedicated training sessions with individuals and service areas, and that's something that we have constantly on offer. So the end result of all of this is our number of applications have increased dramatically off the scale. If we compare when we were using just Northeast jobs with no ATS to now using TriPad, our applications have increased by over 500%. We've also managed to reduce the number of times we've had to re-advertise, so we've got a better fill rate first time. And then having an effective ATS means we are slicker at what we do, and we have managed to reduce the time to hire a bit as well. And the team are KPI'd on those. So what's next? Well, obviously, there's continual development of the system and the team. There's always something to tweak and learn. We're about to move as a business into a more detailed workforce planning sessions across the organisation, working very closely with hiring managers and heads of service and directors, which will also bring us very much closer to working with the rest of the people and culture team, especially OD and the people advisors. We're in the middle of developing our careers website to provide a one-stop shop for everyone interested in working for NCC, and really trying to give everybody as much information in all sorts of different areas when they're looking to work for us. The ATS does provide very comprehensive reporting, so we are developing using this facility to gain greater knowledge about our candidates and what works and what doesn't. We will still periodically send out hiring manager and candidate surveys to continue to evaluate and improve what we're doing. And we now have a dedicated communications resource a couple of days a week to assist with developing our marketing materials and supporting the team with posts. So that is everything. It's been quite a tough journey at times, but extremely rewarding, and it's seeing our hard work pay off. So thank you so much for listening, and please ask any questions you'd like.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Annalie and Marie and Hafiza and all of the team that have contributed to that. That's been incredibly succinct and really useful. And we've already had our first question come into the chat, and I know that there are going to be some more coming as well. But thank you so much for your preparation and for being so open and sharing that. So
that's all right.
That's come in, Annalie, from Sue is, did you come up against any GDPR issues? GDPR, what's that? Issues when developing your talent pool?
No, not specifically. Obviously, we set very strict guidelines in TriPad when we first set up the ATS. We did re-establish exactly what our hold time should be, and talk to information governance about that as well, and were revised accordingly. And obviously, there's all the permissions that candidates can switch on and off, and we do see that actively in use. You can see straight away, obviously, if somebody doesn't want to be contacted by some method. So if it was something that we built in at the time, it's not something necessarily that's constantly under review because it doesn't really change, but it is there.
That's brilliant. Thanks for that, Annalie. A question I had really was, you talked about seeing a decrease in your time to hire. Now, I think that's one of the metrics that we often get asked about, certainly from a technology perspective. And it's only ever half the story, isn't it? Because reducing your time to hire is great, and it's something that we can talk about, but it's the effect of that, how it then impacts your team, how it impacts the communities that you serve. Could you share any more about that, and what the difference is that you're seeing now that you're getting people in post quicker?
I think that hiring managers have more trust in us, which is great, and acknowledge our expertise in recruitment because they can see everything as it's all going through the process with candidates and the vacancy and so on, but also they can see that we are able to do things a lot quicker than we were previously. It is that slicker system than we've had previously, and therefore they're getting people in much quicker, which we've always struggled with before. We can communicate with candidates much more easily, so we keep them on board with us. We still got a drop rate, obviously, but it's not horrendous.
Yeah, brilliant. That's great. The next question has come in from Holly. Now, I can answer this, but I'll put it to you as well, Annalie. So the question in from Holly O'Sullivan says, does TriPad automatically delete applications / interview details after 6 months if the candidate was unsuccessful. So I'll answer from a tech perspective. Yes, Holly, you can set your parameters so that the system will automatically delete that. And I wonder, Annalie, whether you can just share about, I guess, what the impact of having that automated is for you. So I guess not having to keep track of how long you've had candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really useful that the system will automatically send out emails to candidates to let them know they've got X number of days of before something is deleted. I think it sends 3, maybe 4 emails out. So, candidates can come back to us and say, no, don't. But if they're sitting there inactive, it just keeps the system clean. We've got enough candidates going through the process as it is without worrying, whether somebody's still live and active or not. So I think the fact that it does clear, obviously, you can, as you've said, you can set your own parameters, but it really makes life so much easier that you don't have to think about doing a clear out now and again.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. Annalie, what you're saying is resonating because we've had 3 quick-fire questions in succession. So I'll put the first to you here. And this is from Holly Stark that says, all sounds fantastic, great work, which I would agree with. Would love to know about the candidate data the ATS collects, thinking from an ED&I perspective and how it informs attracting diverse audiences.
So we do very closely monitor the DEI data now. We do it the same thing twice in the system. So when somebody applies for a post, they'll be asked to complete a DEI survey. It's mandatory to complete it, but obviously it has a prefer not to say answer on it, so that we can really monitor through the reporting our applicant workforce as such, for want of better, and check the diversity there. We then send the same questionnaire out again when we send their contract out. So we feel that they're pretty much at that point, they're about to accepted their offer letter, about to accept their contract, and they're probably nearly here. So we sort of class them as our current workforce. So we asked exactly the same questionnaire again, which really gives us a great view of how we're doing from a diversity point of view, both out there to anybody looking to join us, and then actually what the end result is like. Does that answer the question?
Yes, yeah, it really does. And it actually ties in nicely with some research that we commissioned last year, which shows that over time, candidates are getting more trusting of how we're using their equal ops data. So it's only a small percentage increase, but from 2022 to 2023, and we expect the same to continue.
Yeah, and I think, we get ourselves out there a lot with job fairs and so on, but the council has just been to Mila in Newcastle, the Asian event, and also Gay Day in Alnwick Castle. So, we're getting associated with lots of different events as well, which I just think helps get our name out there and know that we're open to anybody.
Brilliant. A job for everyone. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the next question in from Chantal Carson says, how did the process decrease in time in regard to references?
Well, I'm not sure I could necessarily put a figure on that. References obviously still can be a bit of an issue, just because obviously you're dealing with somebody external that you have absolutely no control over, a bit like DBS and so on. It is easier for us to send references off. We get the correct details from the candidate. We send those references off. Lots of them still come in, obviously, by email rather than the form we sent, but that's easy enough to attach in. So I think it's smoother. I don't think you'll ever get a really slick reference system, just because, as I say, you've got to chase them, and so all candidates got to chase them. We chase them. But I think that just the whole way that we can send those references out is really, really helpful. And the system does send reminders as well that they're, to those referees that there's a reference to complete, which I think helps as well. So they're getting a triple whammy: the system, the candidate, and us.
I think I saw quite a few nodding and knowing smiles at the challenges of trying to get other people to do things for us. And we've got time for another couple of questions. Please do keep putting those questions in the chat if you have them, even if we don't get to them now. Annalie has kindly said that she will address them afterwards. So the next couple of questions, I've got another one, sorry, from Sue, don't apologise. 577% increase in candidates is amazing. Do you have any insight about the quality of those candidates, which I guess is the challenge, isn't it? We don't just want to be inundated.
In the main, I would say we have seen an increase in quality. We take application forms and CVs, so obviously that's a slightly new way for managers to deal with, but we can't always dismiss anybody who just applies by a CV. We do sift, the talent acquisition advisors do sift applications to try and clear people out that really aren't suited for the role at all, and then pass on to the hiring manager. The fact the hiring manager can see everything and look at everything and do a shortlisting questionnaire in TriPad makes life a lot easier. So I think in the main, we have seen a change in quality. It's not always, we still have jobs clearly where we get huge quantities and the hiring manager says, I've got like 2 people out of 60. But I don't think we're ever going to stop that necessarily because it's so easy to apply for jobs these days. But I think just the whole setup has improved how we're viewed, and therefore we're seen as somebody worth working for. And that comes down to the effort the team and so on have done to get our name out there.
That's fab. We've got one more question in the chat. In fact, I'm going to come to Holly's questions in the chat because Alison, you've been patiently waiting with your hand held up. So Alison, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, the reason I've not put it in the chat was I wanted to give a bit of background. I don't work in a council. I work for the Regional Employers Organisation in the east of England. And I know you've got your own NEREO in the northeast. Yes. In terms of when you said that the applicant tracking system and bringing that in had increased your applicants by 577%, which is absolutely awesome. And you said that that was better than when you were just using the jobs board in the northeast.
Yeah.
So are you still using the jobs board in the northeast, and the two together have made the change?
Yeah. So we use Northeast Jobs for most of the local councils around here. It is the go-to. It's very well known. So we would probably never stop using that. But the reach of Indeed is obviously so much bigger. So we use the combination of vacancy automatically get posted on Northeast Jobs and Indeed for every single vacancy. We have got the options if we want to use somewhere a little bit more specialist as well, if we want to, but those two areas and then the social media backup gives us that really wide area to cover, because we are so big and we're so competitive with other areas very close by. And Indeed is easier than Northeast Jobs to apply on. TriPad, sorry, yes, no, sorry, not Indeed. TriPad is easier to apply than Northeast Jobs. So I think that message has really got out there over the last year as well. But we would never stop using Northeast Jobs necessarily. We'd have a local jobs board.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's great. There are a couple more questions in the chat, but I'm conscious we've got to past. So I'm going to say, if it's okay, Holly, with your questions, if you're okay to stay on, and Annalie, if you've got another couple of minutes, we'll tackle those questions. Of course, anyone else that wants to stay around for them can as well. But I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you so much, Annalie and Marie, and all of the team. We'll just hand back to Sue to formally close, and then we'll tackle those questions for anyone else that wants to stay on for another couple of minutes.
Yeah, that was a really interesting presentation. Thanks, Annalie, and thanks to TriPad as well for supporting us. The only bit I've been asked to say, and we do get a list of jobs. We've got our virtual conference on the 25th of September. We'd really love to see you there. So that's available on the PPMA website. And we also have our AGM, which is slightly less exciting than the conference. But, you know, your voices are important. So if anyone wants to get involved with the AGM, again, you can look up those details on the PPMA website. But just a final thanks really to everybody for your participation, and especially to Northumberland for all the work that you've put into the presentation. It's been really interesting.
You're very welcome.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much. We'll keep this open for anyone that wants to stay around for those extra couple of questions. But yeah, thank you all so much for your attendance. And I suppose, Annalie, the two questions that came in from Holly, yep. The first is saying, that's brilliant. How long is your advertised to appoint time? So I guess we're thinking specifically about that slice, which is not traditional time to hire, but advertised to appoint.
Yes, it's around 50 days. We tend to measure it a little bit more from advert close to cleared to start, which is fractionally less, but it's around 50 days. And obviously that's the time staying on top of the hiring managers to do their shortlisting promptly, which is an ongoing issue, and setting up those interviews, and then getting them through pre-employment checks. You know, DBS takes a while, references, OC Health can take a while, those things that we don't have any control over.
Yeah, fab. And then the final question was, this could be a whole session itself. Holly says, do you have many overseas candidates, and are you doing many visas, and does TriPad support with these?
So we are getting more and more overseas candidates. We're clearly not in the league of the NHS, but I've been in the business 2.5 years, and it's tripled in that time. Lots of people are already in the UK and up here on student or graduate visas. We get very few new candidates coming in on a skilled worker visa from abroad. But we do a fair number of skilled worker visas and sponsorship. It's an occupational hazard with the services that obviously they've got to pay for that sponsorship. So we try and make it as uniform as we can across the business, but it's a growing area for us. And we don't want to discourage those people, because obviously they could bring extra skills, and we've got a lovely social worker, for instance, about to start in adults. We've just switched their visa off, but having said that, the new Home Office rules and regulations regarding visas that came in at the beginning of April are incredibly tough to meet. They are complicated. So it takes us, when we have somebody, it takes us quite a while to work out, you know, what route we're going to get them on, or they just do not meet the new threshold. So it will be very interesting to see what changes the new government make, if any.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I suppose just tacking onto that, the TriPad part of it. So we have integrations with different third-party processes that do the legwork. But as you say, Annalie, it's about the, you know, what route can we actually take, and how do we want to approach this, which is the thinking.
We do the certificate of sponsorship, obviously outside the system as such, and we process the candidate as normal through TriPad. That's no difference. It's just their right to work is their visa.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other questions that anyone? We've still amazingly got 14 people with us, which is great. Are there any other final questions that we want to get out in the time that we have? On the assumption that there's not, I can't see any other hands raised. I'll just say again, thank you so much, Annalie and team. That was really great, and thank you, Sue, for hosting us, and for the PPMA for this opportunity. It's been great.
Thank you, everybody.